Howdy, y'all. Welcome to another episode of the Redneck Lesbian, where we're going to get a little bit woo-woo, but in a good way. We're going to talk about the divine masculine and the divine feminine, and what even does that mean? And today, my special guest is Brad Sunday, and he has been a practicing pagan for some time. Is that right? Pagan or Wiccan?
I identify as Wiccan, and
That'll
I've been
do.
practicing since 1989.
Cool.
And I've been the Sibylline priest for 13 years now, I think.
And
So,
you're attracted to the Wiccans for the same reason I am, because they don't just have a god who's a dude, right? There's more to it than that.
amen. I like the balance, the male and female, and I find a lot of value in that, both in my inner work and in my writings and in my teachings. um Acknowledging both,
Yeah.
because I've known people that were, I remember, when I was teaching a lot, I used to teach a class called Pagan Pathways that was at a unfortunately defunct bookstore in San Antonio, Texas. um but I remember meeting some people that were so like goddess oriented and so to the other side that they were kind of like new age airheads. And that just kind of turns me off. You know what I mean? You know what I mean?
I do know what you mean. And I think that speaks to, there's a lot of trauma in the world around so in addition to, so you've got divine masculinity and divine femininity, but you also have toxic aspects of both. And we all know what we mean when we talk about, particularly the toxic masculinity gets, I think, more um uh, gets talked about more. And I think
Oh,
that
but it's
scares
way more
people.
prevalent too. Yeah.
So that I think that scares people into going to, the absolute opposite end, right? It's like,
Yeah.
I've had enough of that. Give me the goddess, right?
Oh, yeah. And I think, but it's interesting because I remember I did a class one time with a friend who was also a sibling. And we decided, let's just go out on a limb and we are going to do a class on the divine masculine. Our attendance went from like 25 to 30 people a class. To that class, it was down to less than 10
That's kind of
because
sad.
people did not like the topic. And I remember at the time, there was a gay guy who was actually going through the sibling classes, to become an initiate. And he fought with us the whole time. It's like, well, I got involved with paganism because I don't want anything to do with the masculine. And he like fought with us the entire time. And the unfortunate thing is that he refused to do men's mysteries, which is part of the sibling curriculum. And I refused to initiate him because he could not get his shit together. But I've seen the opposite of that too, where people are like so goddess oriented. And I mean, with him, I guess I'm saying the same thing with him. But
Yeah.
it's weird because he was a man and he's gay. So you would think he would be all about the man. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, I mean, it depends, if he had a bad father influence there, toxic father, yeah, I can see wanting to get away from that. I
Yeah, and it's interesting because I think that I came to Wicca because I had a very abusive father. Um, Physical abuse, SA, which I will not get into. Um, but I remember my first ever tarot deck was the Mythic Tarot that came out in 1987. And I still have the original books, and I have all my notes in the margins when I was studying. And I don't remember what card it is. It's one of the majors. Let's just say it's the Emperor. I don't know. But I have in really angry pen on the margins, maleness equals asshole. And I
Right?
was so against any sort of like male energy.
Yeah.
And I really had to work with incorporating that because can't do, you gotta have both.
We not only do you
You
have to
gotta
have
have
it, we
both.
do have both in
We
us.
do have both, and we need to acknowledge it in ourselves to become complete,
Exactly.
effective individuals, you know? So,
When I
yeah.
was a kid, my dad was a jerk too, and a very toxic fellow. And I was just scared of all daddies. I just thought all daddies were
Mm-hmm.
mean. And yet at the same time, because I'm aware that most of my lifetimes I've been a male, and I have a very high male masculine energy component. And my dad kind of treated me like I was a boy because he wanted a boy. He didn't get a boy, so he's going to treat me like one. And it's funny that I kind of very easily adopted that worldview as a kid. And it was only later, as I was getting older, like if I'd write a story, I'd write it from a male point of view. And later, finally, I was like, shouldn't you be writing from a female perspective? And it had never occurred to me to do so. And I think part of that is patriarchal brainwashing, like the male gaze is the only important one. But yeah, it's taken me a long time to kind of come to grips with my own femininity. And I think it varies for everybody which one they struggle with the most for whatever reason. It wasn't until I gave birth to my first child, it's like, wow, I feel the most feminine I have ever felt in my life. I did not think it was possible. So
Well, yeah, I would think that giving birth to a child would be the ultimate feminine experience, right?
it was, and it was a great experience. Don't get me wrong, I love my kids, but it also at the same time it felt weird. Yeah. So yeah. Well, tell me what you mean about like that. What is the divine masculine? Tell me.
So to me, it's like, when I first got into, this is just my reference point, is like
Yeah,
paganism, right? So I don't want to like alienate anybody listening that or doesn't identify as pagan, but this is just my thing.
that's your lens.
Growing up Catholic, Christian, I left the Catholic Church because it was not spiritual enough. So I went to an evangelical church, right?
Oh, Lordy.
So I was like way into the divine masculine,
Jesus,
but
that's
it
it.
did,
Jesus, right?
yeah, but it did not work for me. So anyway, that's what, and we're not even talking about that particular journey.
Yeah, I
but
get it.
um, but it's interesting. It was when I first started being very, very serious in ritual, in meditation. I started off doing the typical, pagan witchy things. And I went to Hecate, of course. Um, and then I went to this, generic goddess, of course. And then I got into really into Colette Baron Reed, who I'm still way into, by the way. I don't know if you know her, but she's a new age author, does fabulous oracle cards,
Fantastic.
and she refers to the divine as spirit, and it's whatever the fuck it is to you. And I remember in meditation getting these really strong images. And I don't even want to say images because they weren't visual. They were like these energetic, like, and I was like, Apollo, is that you? Like, what the Apollo? And it was fucking Apollo. And I spent a year working with Apollo. And he taught me how to, because at the time I had just began teaching and I was still nervous and raw and insecure and blah, 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 because I hadn't gotten to any of the masculine in me, right?
Uh,
I was still very much the card reader and the introspective and the artist. But I was
but
I
that's
hate
where
to
you
even
needed healing.
I hate to say this, but I was weak because I was so in the feminine, right?
Just
Because that
unbalanced,
was
I
my
would say,
yeah,
right?
that was my safe space. So this thing from Apollo, I was like, fuck. And I was like, one of my sibling teachers taught me. She's like, every time I've been visited by a deity, I've always spent a full year with them to see what they needed to teach me. And
Yeah.
I spent a full year with Apollo. And it gave me it gave me confidence. It gave me much more of a, because at the time I was hosting a lot of public rituals because I was fortunate enough to live on a big chunk of land. So we had a lot of public rituals there for the Sabbats. And I got to the point where I could like lead people and run things and be confident and not feel like I was doing a cosplay as like a leader. I mean, I was what I said went. And I'm not saying this like in a Jim Jones way. I'm saying it in like you know, this is what we're doing and you're doing this. And it felt good because I had never been that before.
It's like the good father side, right? The
Yeah.
protector,
Does
the
that all make
guide.
sense? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Protecting, guiding, lovingly guiding, right?
hmm
Your children in that metaphorical
Yeah, and I'm
way.
not being an asshole like my dad was.
Yeah.
And I'm not even seeing leading in like a controlling way. I'm just saying like I was able to be like, this is what we're doing, and this is what's going on, and you got to do this. And then sometimes people would like challenge me on certain things, but I would listen to them. And
Mhm.
I'd be like, okay, no, I'm not changing this, or yes, we can change this because I see your point of view.
Yeah.
Whereas my dad, it would have just been like,
My way or the
highway
highway.
or the highway, fuck you. And me before would have been like, oh, okay, whatever you say, because I'm obviously wrong, you know? So that was my coming into the masculine. And it's interesting since then, Apollo seems to be my go to.
Hmm.
He seems to be the one that, for whatever reason, comes. And it's really interesting because when I was struggling with addiction and alcoholism, the one that helped me through it? Dionysus,
Mm.
which seems really ironic, right?
But that is the message of the gods, is that everything is kind of in should be in balance, right?
Yeah.
Including
Yep.
partaking of things like that.
because I went through big struggles. Well, you know that. I went through
Yeah,
big struggles with that. And it was Dionysus, which is so fucking funny
that
because
is
it
kind of funny.
just seems really ironic, And and then we're gonna go to you talking about the feminine, but I just gotta say something really, really funny. I had this, I won't say her real name because I haven't spoken to her in years. And I hope she's okay because I loved her so much, but I lost touch. Anyway, one of my fellow siblings, I had done this ritual, and Dionysus was the presiding deity over this ritual. And this woman had been sober for decades, and she decided that she was going to have a few. And then all of a sudden, she was dancing in her lingerie. I am not kidding. And she was like, "Oh my God, I don't know what happened." And I'm like, "Girl, you had fun. Everybody appreciated it. And maybe you needed to do that." you know? And I will leave that story there, but it's just kind of a funny thing, you know?
It could be a challenge. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, the lens is so often on the masculine in our society because it's a patriarchy, right? So that's who's doing a lot of controlling behaviors. But the feminine in our society, we it doesn't mean that if we aren't being toxic masculine that we've attained divine feminine in ourselves either. There is a toxic feminine, and I think that we can see that laid out a lot. So what the kind of femininity that's encouraged, for example, in the evangelical church, where you're submissive, you don't have an opinion, you just basically take whatever's handed to you, even if it's a like punch in the face, right? Um,
Mhm.
so that is not right. I mean, the divine feminine has a fierceness, if you've worked with any
Yeah.
goddesses, that they can be pretty darn fierce. I mean, uh, Kali came to me a year or two ago, and you don't mess around with that lady. Um, so boundaries, the goddess has boundaries. The goddess, yes, is soft and peaceful and, these kind of softer things, but that doesn't mean that she can't take a stand or stand up for herself or protect her children too with great deal of ferocity, and for who she is and what she believes in. So, yeah,
It's interesting that you say that because in my dealings with Hecate or Hecate, I always say Hecate. I know people pronounce it all sorts of different ways, but anyway.
yeah,
Um, she has been very harsh with me, very no nonsense, very much like making me look at things. You don't fucking like this. This is how it is, and you gotta fucking recognize this and fucking change it. So that's a really strong thing of the feminine too, is like I feel like, especially like in American society, the father is just the disciplinarian asshole, and the mother is the one that is like, yeah, you fucked up and you were wrong, but you need to fucking do better, and this is why, you know.
yeah,
But that's also very related, and that also needs to go together, right? And I think that's kind of what we're trying to say.
yeah,
I mean, not disciplinary, but that was just an example. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like my dad would beat me. My mom would be the one to be like, "You fucked up and don't fucking do this again. And this is why. You really hurt your cousin's feelings, or you really shouldn't steal from the Luckies or whatever." You know what I mean? Which is something that happened, but But yeah, I think that yeah, and I feel like when people go to goddess-based religions, I think they go to this delusion that it's all love and light. And life is not all love and light, and spirituality is not all love and light.
Right.
And we are not meant to be all love and light. And I think that probably pisses the goddess off because she ain't all love and light. And a lot of people go to that, right? Right?
Exactly.
Anyway, did I go off the rails by just saying that?
No, not at all.
Because god damn it, that is something that
No,
yeah.
it's very relevant because, and I've noticed this a lot. I think that a lot of people, particularly women, um, but not restricted to women, think that so when they become spiritual, I mean, there's this belief that like, oh, you're supposed to be calm and quiet all the time. You should never be angry. You should never have a negative emotion. If so, you're doing it wrong. And that's just not the way it works. Uh, you know, um, the goddess is perfectly capable of getting in her divine anger as she should, right?
Oh yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with any of those things. Even in the divine masculine, it's not like anger is a bad thing. It's just that what happens with the toxic masculine is that anger is the only outlet available, right? Because men aren't supposed to feel anything else. And it becomes controlling and violent. Whereas it can be a useful spur, right?
Controlling and violent. Hello, Yahweh.
Yeah, exactly,
We
exactly.
can't. I guess we really shouldn't go there, huh? But
Well, it's kind of
I
I've always
can't
thought it's
resist it.
silly to say that you've got this creative God force, but it's only masculine energy. Excuse me, who gives
Yeah,
birth? You think you can create without the feminine? Of course not. That's ridiculous.
yeah, and it's so hard for me in talking about stuff like this with people, um, to not Christian bash, and I really try not to, because that's what I grew up in. That's my whole family.
Yeah.
That's a lot of my friends.
Well, the problem is that, and it's not the only
But
religion, but
I'm
it does have
so,
toxic.
but it's a toxic, vengeful
Yeah,
a-hole of a god who needs to be taken down a few steps and realize he ain't the shit. You know what I mean?
I do. Um,
And that's so challenging. It was very challenging for me because we have that fear of hell and that fear of punishment. So, like, toxic masculine father sort of thing, right? This is why I'm bringing this up.
yeah.
And if you know logically that, you're not going to go to hell and blah, 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 or, you logically, what you did was not wrong, but you still have this fear of punishment by this toxic father figure.
Well, it's brainwashing, right?
And that is so much in our society.
It gets into your nervous system, and once it's part of your nervous system, it's really hard to heal
It is really hard to heal.
because it's not
It,
it's not a
yeah.
logical response, it's a nervous emotional
Mm-hmm.
response and physical response, right? That feeling that a child gets when that dad has just lost his shit and you are in the target zone.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to get rid of that feeling, even in adulthood, if it gets triggered. So, um,
Oh yeah, and it like the toxic masculine doesn't only hurt women, it hurts men too.
amen.
And that is like I spent a weekend with some dear friends of mine from Texas this past weekend, and he's going through these struggles with trying to reconcile an abusive relationship with his brother. and we were talking about how that relationship was based on the brother's relationship with his very Catholic, religious, semi abusive father.
Yeah.
And then the brother passed that on, and it's really hard. And we actually talked about this, and he was like, I wish, and this is actually what he said. He was like, I wish this Christian bullshit had not gone so far into my family because my brother would have treated me better and my dad would have treated us better, and then I could love my brother, but now I can't love my brother because I can't get over what he did because of this Christian bullshit. Meaning that the roles,
Yeah, yeah, exactly. The roles are so toxic
so
and
that is
in
right
so many
there, real
religions.
life, how toxic masculinity can ruin people and ruin families.
And toxic femininity too. So if you've got a toxic mom in that situation, what that toxic femininity might look like is that she passively allows the abuse. And I don't want to make excuses for anybody here. 'Cause, I understand there may be lots of reasons for that. She feels overwhelmed, she feels unsafe, whatever it is. And I have sympathy for that. Please don't get me wrong. But doing nothing in the face of abuse is also toxic. So, these are learned roles. These are, yeah, kind of embedded in our culture. I have my family history is basically rednecks and hillbillies, and there's a lot of toxic shit in there. And it just comes from these kind of hierarchical structures and this hierarchical religion in which, God's on top, and then men get to do whatever they like to everybody else around them because they think they're God. Uh, you know, the representation of God on earth. But it's true that men, there's a loneliness epidemic, particularly for men. And you've got these incels out there, they're lonely. And the thing is, of course, it's their behavior driving women away.
Oh God,
But,
yeah.
but it's because no one ever taught them how to be a man, a proper man, a healthy man,
Mm-hmm.
a man cultivating his divine masculinity rather than his toxic masculinity. Anytime I see somebody who says, stop crying or whatever it is, some parent to a kid, so kind of want to slap them, it's just like, stop doing that. Let the kid cry. Emotions are good. Stop telling them to stuff it up.
Oh, I know. And that was my dad.
Yeah,
What are you crying for? You're acting like a goddamn skirt. That was his big phrase.
that's really helpful, Dad.
You're acting like a goddamn skirt. And then later in life, I'd be like, mm-hmm. But that wasn't healthy either because I was going so far against
Yeah,
that I was totally dysregulated in my balance, that it took me into my 30s to really become like a full person
yeah, yeah.
because I was this hyper feminine on purpose queen,
Mhm.
like angry hyper feminine queen, because I was rejecting everything that was my dad, and it really did affect my quality of life, for lack of a better phrase. I don't know how to say it other than that,
Yeah,
in
absolutely.
relationships and work, and my get up and go as far as jobs, and you know what I mean.
Absolutely.
And it really, really did take me to get to have a relationship with that maleness in me. And it's interesting for gay men. Can I go just like, can I say something that can be like mildly pornographic? So like,
Well, this show is not for kids, that is for
it's
sure.
really interesting for gay men. Like, so many of us, our fetish is just like sucking cock. And that was my fetish, right? And that is so submissive.
Hmm.
And it's all about
See what you're saying.
getting the man off
Uh-huh.
and nothing about yourself. And
A lot of women approach it that same way.
really, yeah, interesting. And I feel like when I was able to expand my sexual repertoire and realize like me getting off is important too. And this is a
Thank you.
man getting
Yeah.
me off. That was very empowering because I was like, oh, I don't have to be submissive because I find this person attractive.
Well, it's like when you get to the point where you've lost yourself. So women do this all the time. I see women, young women always go through this stage. Sometimes they never leave it, where, oh, I have this boyfriend. And deep down, so the thinking is that guys can never be interested in what a woman is interested in. What her interests are irrelevant. So they have to become interested in what he's interested in order to retain his interest, if you will. So they will sacrifice things that they love about and things about themselves, even that they love, to conform to what the guy, how he is, who he is, what he wants, what he likes. And it's just toxic, and you cannot sustain that long term. And it happens all the time. And
Mm-hmm.
that is part of the imbalance because you have to matter. I don't care if you're in your feminine or masculine, dominant, you've got to matter, right? So that's a huge part of and why that balance is between the two is necessary.
Yeah, and what you were just saying, it's so funny that you were just saying that because for some ungodly reason, I thought of something I had not thought about in years because it's just so like random and stupid. But when I was this morning, when I was waking up and I was thinking about, recording with you and my mind, letting my mind just do what it does, right? I had remembered this time. I had gone up to Houston with my boyfriend at the time, and we had gone with his sisters and the sisters' boyfriends. And we had gone to the movie theater to see the Sex and the City movie, the second Sex and the City movie. And I remember the boyfriends were like, "Oh, I don't want to see that now. My God."
Chick flick, right?
Yeah, yeah. And of course, me and my ex were like, "Oh, yeah, I fucking want to see it." We were excited because we were like, and you know what? They were able, one of them, one of them didn't say anything, but one of them was able to get out of his space and really enjoy the movie and talked about how fun it was. And he was like, I remember, and I remember this conversation. And he was like, I remember that, that karaoke scene. At first, I just rolled my eyes because it was just some stupid women shit. But he was like, they were having fun. And then I had fun too, watching them have fun. And that was like a shift in his brain watching that stupid movie, right?
Well, that's the thing about
And that
toxic
was so
masculinity.
interesting. He had that little bit of a shift, even though he went in being like, I'm going to hate this chick shit, you know?
But toxic masculinity represses joy. It
Yeah.
it is forbidden. It's like you think of all the toxic men and they have no joy, and they are going to make sure that no one else does either, right? You can spot it a mile away. There's no joy in their lives. And that, again, that's one of those emotions that they're not allowed to feel. That's sad.
Oh, it's so sad. It's so sad.
And
But
that
I
guy had an
saw
epiphany in the
he
theater.
did. And it's so funny. It was because of Sex in the City Part Two, whatever the fuck the name of that movie was.
Yeah, I have no idea.
But anyway, but let's move on to like, so how can we overcome this? Because we
Exactly.
all have this dichotomy inside of us. How can we like
Get in touch with.
find balance? And if we see people, you can't, I mean, it's like I can't go to like, my cousins and be like, you need to turn pagan and have a relationship with the goddess because you're an asshole. Or you need to do blah 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 because you know what I mean? You can't do that.
Well, you certainly,
So what do we do? But also we can sort of like maybe share things that we do to make us feel better that are sort of like would help people come more into balance.
yeah, I mean, I think there's no one way to do it, and you've got to be ready for it. If you've got toxic cousin over here who's in toxic masculinity, yeah, he's gonna have to come to that on his own. Maybe he'll get some feedback at some point that lets him know that what he's doing is not okay. And loving feedback, um, is always a good thing. But again, the only one we can ever really change is ourselves. And I don't know. I haven't done I've done some meditations online. I've done things like that. I've done my inner child work. Uh, and that's helped me to recognize what the issues are. And in the masculine feminine framework piece of it, I have just been trying to embrace feminine things, feminine and feminine spirit, as well. I've been I get a lot of that in my routine. Um, and just recognizing that that part of me is okay too. You know what I mean? And that yes, she can be there, and yes, she can still be angry. She can still be a force, you know. It's not just this, dichotomy of dualism where, eh, one's passive and one's aggressive or, whatever. I think it's more of a combination of both, right? The feminine can be passive, but she can also be aggressive. Same with the masculine. It's just what
Oh, absolutely. And I found that like in my years of practicing meditation, it's like, there's my belief was always to like completely empty your mind and just be in this like la la land where you were feeling nothing, right? And I have achieved that sometimes. And there's value in that. I definitely have achieved that sometimes. Um, but my favorite part is like when you're in between like fully active mind before you totally zone out and then you're just in that spot and then god damn it, a noise happens and it gets you out of it and you're like, damn it, you know what I'm talking about, right?
yeah.
But when you're in that in between spot, I love when I'm like observing my mind and not feeling anything, but just observing my mind. And I'm like, this happened and that happened, and this is way from the past, and this is a plan. But you see it from like a non emotional perspective. And then there's like, and I mean, this isn't specifically like mask them, but it's definitely like, yin yang or whatever, as far as,
Well,
and you're like, oh, this is what it is. And oh, this is a good thing. And I need to, does that make sense?
absolutely,
And
because
I think that meditational where you observe your own mind and find the value in what you're feeling, or maybe even see the non-value in how you reacted to something or how you think about something when you're looking at it as an observer but not in your own self. That is going to bring the balance.
I
Does
agree.
that make sense, or is that too, am I being too esoteric?
Not at all. Not at all. Well, honestly, I think all healing happens in the esoteric.
Oh yeah.
So, no soul is, there's no gendered souls, right? Your soul is just your soul. The body is gendered, uh, physically gendered one way, might be gendered another way here,
Yeah.
um, but in your mind, but the soul is just the soul, and there's no gender involved. You know, like archangels, I work with archangels, they're not gendered. They may have a name that you associate with a gender, Archangel Michael. There's no gender there. They're neither. And over the years, as I've thought about myself and these new labels that are coming out in the queer community that I find very helpful, that didn't exist in the 80s, let me tell you. If
Mm-hmm.
I had to define myself today after much thought, I would be non-binary. And I feel more aligned with that, my kind of that soul perspective that you are talking about, really, that you find. Um, I haven't been able to do a lot of quiet mind things. I'm ADHD and it's really hard. I find guided meditations are more helpful for me, or just a little bit, maybe the transcendental method where you're just focusing on your breathing, and maybe a word um, that helps you with that.
That works really well for me too. The focus on the breath and just finding a seed word.
A seed word, yeah. And it doesn't have to be given to you by somebody. You have to pay TCM, Transcendental Meditation Council or whatever,
I
money to give you a word. Make one
know,
up.
no.
It's not it's it's not all that, just make one up, seriously.
It's weird. When I was in rehab, my meditation, you're gonna laugh at me, but my meditational C word was kiss because
Of
of the
course it
band.
was.
Because of the band. And I think I shared with you before in a private conversation, and that put me into this space. And I saw Kiss, the band, and their members and their characters. And I was able to be like, I mean, this is all like subconscious, right? This was
Yeah.
not like me thinking this out. It was just, it's all like coming. It's like, okay, Gene Simmons is this character and he's the money making capitalist. Paul Stanley is this character
Hmm.
and he's this sensual blah blah blah, and Ace Frehley is this character and he's this spaceman, but he's the one that's like fucked up on drugs all the time, etc. Right? But I was able to see that all as like how that all came into the whole, the beauty is that is Kiss,
Yeah.
the positive, the negative, and the good. And that was actually something very important to me and revolutionary to me when I was in rehab. You
That's really all it
know?
takes. Is it important to you? Do you resonate with the imagery? Uh,
Yeah, and isn't that the same as masculine feminine?
yeah,
Because
exactly.
it's all these different things, and you're recognizing, yeah, this is bad, this is good. Well, I mean, it's this is not helpful, this is
There
helpful,
you go. Yeah.
but this is part of it, and take this and try to work on, you know what I mean? And it was because of Kiss. You
Whatever
know?
framework does it. If you're into Star Wars and you want to use that, go for it. Whatever. Anything like that works. Anything like that works.
I did a ritual one time where the power chants for the spell work were the dragon shouts from Skyrim.
There you go.
And I was like, I don't remember what they are right now, but just see, like, Foos is strength and Foe was I don't remember what they were.
Yeah.
But I was like, these are these words, because they were nonsensical words to the participants, right? So they could like focus on the energy of strength or release, or I think it was strength release. I don't remember, but you get what I'm saying. And because there wasn't a concept of what those were, it was just the energy of like the concept that I had
Mhm.
explained with these nonsensical words. People were like, that was so powerful. I loved that so much. And I was like, yeah, that was like dragon shouts from the Skyrim video game.
You
And
know,
I did it on purpose because there was no preconceived notion of what this word is going to be,
right.
you know?
That's great.
Yeah. So anyway,
Well, the mythic framework, any mythic framework exists to help us um, imagine and harness our personal power, right? So, whatever works for you. And I know that there's in the pagan and Wiccan communities, there's always conversation of like, well, which gods do you work with? That kind of thing. It's whatever resonates for you. Um, are they all faces of the same energy? Well, yeah. But slightly differing aspects, and some of it may depend on your past life experiences as well. I find that's true for me. Um, if I've worked with that deity in the past or that spirit in the past, they are with me now too. So
yeah, but it's really interesting. I feel like that meditational and intuitive sort of connection
yeah, yeah,
is so important for you to be able to find who you are and to like balance yourself, since that's the theme of our, of our conversation.
I think the key here is just to announce to the universe that you are ready for that, and the opportunities will flood in. You
Oh
know,
yeah. Oh yeah.
I am ready for this. I want to heal, wherever the damage is, if you're having a hard time with your masculinity or your femininity or maybe both, whatever's going on there. Balancing yourself.
Healing the divine masculine, ask yourself, what am I afraid to feel? Where do I need stronger boundaries? What am I protecting? I feel like I touched a little bit upon that when I was talking about that silly story about the Sex in the City movie.
Yeah.
But like, talk more about that. Like, what were you thinking when you wrote those questions?
These are just kind of questions to ask yourself to get your own mind thinking. We're so used to our ruts that we don't even recognize them as ruts. We don't know what is um, been applied to you rather as opposed to what is universally true, if you know what I mean when I say that. Um, there may have been a belief that's been pushed upon you and it just doesn't, it's not valid for you anymore. It doesn't hold water. Um, it doesn't serve you anymore. And that's all part of healing as well. So these are just questions to find in yourself. Maybe even questions you've never thought to ask yourself before. Like, what am I really doing here?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Why do I feel that way every time? I encounter a man or a woman or, whatever, or somebody who's maybe non-binary even, or whatever. So, why am I reacting the way I'm reacting? Yeah, for the feminine, where did I put that? Yeah, it's the same kind of deal. What do I feel? What do I need? That's
Yeah.
really common in women is to ignore their own needs. Hello, I do that too. But really, what do I need? And taking care that your needs are met. If no one else will do it, you can do it, right? What am I ignoring? Oh my God, so much we might be ignoring and just putting up with, even though it's really making our lives miserable, right?
Yeah, because I really enjoyed your question of what am I afraid to feel and where do I need stronger boundaries in the masculine sort of context?
Yeah.
Because that there it should not be so. Because the masculine divine, it's supposed to be fierce and protective, and that's automatically feeling love, nurturance, but that's been lost because you can't have those emotions without feeling those other ones at the same time, right?
So maybe a good question is,
And vice versa.
maybe a good question is this coming out of love for others and myself, or is this coming out of fear?
Yeah.
Because certainly in the toxic masculine sense, fear is usually like fear of, being exposed or seen or, not being strong enough or whatever it is, and women are often, you know, shushed into such a submissive place where they're afraid of being seen because then the target's on them or, um, just whatever it is instead of love, because if there's a love relationship there, then conversation is possible, right? Healthy conversation is possible.
Yeah.
If it's not there, then you're going to get a lot of fear-based nonsense and shit.
Because in all those emotions, like love and concern are the root of it, or they should be,
Yeah, they should
you
be.
know? So it's like, what was your experience with your toxic father? Because mine was he was just an asshole and he had two emotions.
Pretty
It
much.
was drunkenness or being an angry asshole. There was nothing else. And
My
then loving to give me and my siblings lots of money because he thought that that was somehow going to make us think he wasn't an asshole, even though he was. But there had to be love behind that, but he couldn't
did there?
recognize it.
Did there? Not necessarily. My maternal grandfather was an absolute sociopath. There was no love there. He just did what he liked, how he liked, and it was pretty bad. Um, I think that there's these people think there might be love behind it, but there isn't. There's just fear. In my dad's case, he is deathly afraid of being abandoned because he was as a kid, kind of emotionally and physically. And being found out to not be the smartest person in the room because, he has such an overblown, it's like Trump, like an overblown ego that the worst thing that could happen to him is for someone to realize that he doesn't know everything, right? That's the kind of narcissistic excess he has. And I'm sure he believes that he loves his family. That is not what I experienced. And it took me a while to come to terms with this because, he's my father, so you're supposed to love your father. I can't stand him.
Oh yeah, oh girl, yeah, no, I'm totally down. I'm totally down with that feeling. Oh yeah. Is he still alive?
He is.
Oh, see, mine's dad.
I don't haven't had contact with my parents in 18 years.
Yeah, mine's dead. And I cried for 2 minutes because I thought I should. And then I came home. I remember this is when I still lived in Texas. I remember coming home after he died because he died, in the hospital. And I came home and any picture of him in the house I put in the barbecue and I burned. And then I did a ritual that was basically you stay the fuck away from this house, you stay the fuck away from my mother, and your energy is not allowed in this house, and fuck you. And that was like an hour after he died.
Whatever works. I don't blame you.
Toxic masculinity, girl, that's the price you pay if you spend your life in the toxic masculine.
Well, it's like I tell my kids, live your life such that mu many people will not rejoice upon your death.
Oh
I've
yeah.
gotten the chance to say that a few times in recent years.
That's fabulous because I guarantee you there ain't nobody that cried that motherfucker died.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's sad, but it is what it is.
It is what it is.
But yeah, but if you want to be toxic masculine, that is what your kids are going to think of you when you die. Probably most people don't want that.
No. And this is why it's so important to balance it within yourself. So like if you're a young person and you want children, although I'm hearing from a lot of young people that they don't for various reasons, and I see the problems with having a child right now. Economics is just one piece of it. Um, but to heal things going forward, you have to heal it in yourself. You know, people like my dad, your dad, they didn't do the work. And we
They
see the
weren't,
result.
it wasn't even a capability that they have, which is so sad.
But we are living in an age now where, this is what gives me hope, okay? That the awareness of needing to do work like this is here. And not everyone's going to answer the call. I get that. But those who do will be enough to put this world on a better path, right? Better.
I hope so. I hope so.
I believe so. So but the doing the work is really, really important. So resolving those issues in yourself. I think meditation is a great place to start. Just declaring that you're open to it, and a book might fall in your lap or something like that.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, because if you open yourself up to that, then things will happen.
Absolutely will happen.
You know, you'll intuitively meet somebody or find a book that you need to read, or
All kinds of opportunities.
as soon as just do one step and open your mind, and then it does and it's true. It sounds woo woo. Well, it is woo woo, but it's also true.
But it's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, um,
And I want to plug you. I want to plug your fabulous meditation CD because I still use that CD to this day.
I'm so glad. So these are Bright Hill Meditations on Spotify. You can find the album there. And they're just meditations for different purposes. They're guided meditations, and I did them a number of years ago. So yeah, thank you.
And I'm not
That's a good place
lying.
to
I
start.
use them to this day. That's how we became friends. Because I guess maybe Julie sent, I don't remember.
Hmm, maybe she
Julie
did.
sent them to me. But I think that's how we became friends. Is I think I wrote you like a fan letter regarding that
I think you're
CD.
right. I think you're
And I
right.
was like, oh, I'm a friend of Julie. And I your CD and blah blah blah. Yeah, because that's how we became friends. Is because I wrote you a fan letter.
And I will also say I did write a book called Discovering the Inner Child. And that has some exercises for your inner child work too, which will certainly, there definitely impacts the whole, masculine, feminine side as well. It doesn't
Absolutely.
directly focus on that, but it's all related. So, I do want to, so here, I think I have some questions here that you can ask yourself, for the feminine, uh, just get in a quiet place where nobody's going to bug you, get into a meditative kind of space and ask yourself, what do you need? What do you really need? What do you need? Not what does your family need? What does the spouse need? What do you need? Right? And remember, the desired outcome is always joy. If the desired outcome is not joy, you're doing it wrong. We should be living joyful lives. So what do you need, to get move in that direction, right? What hurts? Acknowledging what hurts is important. You know, spotting the problem matters, right?
And
Um,
that's so hard for people that are stuck in the mask,
I
you
know.
know,
Because
so
they often
hard.
don't want to see what the problem is. Because if
Yeah.
they see the problem, then they have to do something or just, they're faced with a choice. And I get that. Another one is, what are you trying to tell me? And for the masculine, we've got, what burden are you carrying? Because I think a lot of men do feel they're like they have to carry a burden for the family, because they're the guy, right? Um, and really, if you have a partnership with someone else, it should be equal, right? You both carrying burdens together. Maybe one of you's better at this thing than that thing, so they're taking more of that, but then the other one's taking more of this. There should be some kind of equality there. What are you protecting? What is worth it to you? Are you protecting the right things even? If it's people, you're probably on the right path. If it's something else, maybe not. And what do you need help with? Yeah, what do you need help with? And I think that these can go either way, you know, male or female. So, and then what would healing look like between you? No matter, who your my spouse is a wife, it's a woman. So, but I am the more masculine of the two. She is the more feminine of, it kind of works out that way. And we try to keep each other balanced. Well, let me just say, uh, thank you, Brad, for being my guest. I love having you, and it's always good to see you. And
Well, this was fun. Thank you for having me on.
anytime,
And we'll do it again. We'll do it again.
of course we will. Hey, everybody. We have a meditation for you to help you observe the masculine and feminine parts of yourself. Totally optional, of course, but hopefully you'll give it a try. Um, the first thing you should do is get into a relaxed position, whatever that looks like for you. Take a few big, deep breaths, and then focus on your third eye. Visualize your soul body, which may have some form, but is mostly energy. Without judgment, observe the colors of your soul's energy. Feel yourself as you are,
without any masks. This is the real you, the one you may not show to everyone. The feminine part of your spirit takes form and shows herself to you. What does she look like? How does she feel? Are there any previous lifetimes you had as a woman that present themselves? How do you feel about them? She steps back, and the masculine part of your spirit takes form and shows himself to you. What does he look like? How does he feel? Are there any previous lifetimes you had as a man that present themselves? How do you feel about them? Now observe your spirit as the feminine and masculine energies slowly recombine to reveal your whole self. Acknowledge these energies as sacred gifts that make up who you are. If you feel comfortable, thank them for their roles in helping you as a human on this planet at this time.